Today's primary in Ohio is really make or break for Governor John Kasich, whose campaign really hinges on a win in that home state. But he has support from an unlikely source, GOP rival and Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who is asking his supporters to vote for Kasich in Ohio. The Rubio campaign saying it believes Kasich is the only candidate who can stop Trump in that state. According to a Fox News poll, that may be true. Kasich is leading Trump by 5 points. Other polls show the two neck and neck. Chrissy Thompson has been covering the Kasich campaign for the Cincinnati Enquirer and joins us now live. Chrissy, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to start off with a tweet that the Governor Kasich fired off just this morning, reminding the electorate of this undeniable fact, quote, no Republican has ever won the White House without winning Ohio, right? What does he need to do to take Ohio?
Well, you know, Governor Kasich is very popular here among Republicans. Almost 80% say that they have favorable opinions of him. That's more than any other candidate. But as you mentioned, it's very close in the polls with Donald Trump. A lot of Donald Trump supporters say they do like Governor Kasich, but they're not quite sure if he's able to win the primary election and then win in November. And so that's the big question. If he can convince his people in Ohio that he has a chance of winning the nomination, then they'll be able to turn out and vote for him. And that's really the big question for the Kasich campaign.
Critics of Governor Kasich say one of his liabilities is his support, temperate though it may be, for Common Core education standards. He was asked about that on Fox News Sunday just this morning by Chris Wallace. Here's a look.
In our state school board has adopted very high standards, and the curriculum is developed by local school boards. Plain and simple. You can call it anything you want to. At the end of the day, we set the standards, and the local school boards develop the curriculum.
Is that true? And do Ohio voters hold him accountable for his support for Common Core? How does it go over in that state?
Yeah, the answer to both of those questions is yes. In Ohio, the state did choose to sign on to those Common Core educational standards. Now, remember that those are they come with some money from the federal government. That's one way that you can meet some federal requirements that get you that money. But there are other ways to meet them as well. Common Core is the most common way. And so Governor Kasich says, yeah, our state chose that independently. It's not a government program. Now, that's not the feeling of many conservatives in Ohio who do hold Kasich accountable for that, and they are, many of them, upset that the state has signed on to these Common Core educational standards. And Kasich says, well, get into your local school boards and work with them on the ways that you're meeting those standards. You should be able to have local impact on that. But the conservatives say it's just not that easy. You've told the whole state that we're going to do this, and we don't want to do it.
Governor Kasich also has had really quite a turnaround in the state of Ohio. I remember back in February of 2011, and I happened to be in Columbus covering the story at the time, he backed a public sector union reform bill, as did Governor Scott Walker in the state of Wisconsin. But unlike Walker, Kasich failed in his effort, quote, unlike Scott Walker's union reforms in Wisconsin, Kasich's reforms included police and firefighters, which put the bill on shaky ground from the day it was introduced. By November, with Kasich's approval rating hovering at about 35%, SB 5, which was the name of the Senate Bill 5, was finished. And so was John Kasich's tenure as a union reformer. That from PJ Media, February 12, 2016. What helped turn Governor Kasich's fortunes around in Ohio after that?
Yeah, he really backed off of the union reforms, and honestly, that's something that conservatives still hold against him. They feel like he should have pushed to make Ohio a right-to-work state. But he backed off and said that the people of Ohio had spoken. They voted down this new law 2-1 in a referendum, and he said, well, I'm going to focus on some other things, and he really started focusing on Medicaid expansion and on ways to help people with mental illness, with autism, people who are the working poor, and focusing on programs that help relieve poverty. And that has really boosted his approval rating across the state. He has kind of a broader range of approval now among Republicans and Democrats who feel like he has done a pretty good job as governor. And they really point to the fact that the state's economy is steadily improving. You know, you can bring out a lot of different numbers to see that we have lagged the national average in a lot of categories, but our overall employment is up, and people feel like they're on stronger footing here in Ohio than they did when Kasich took over.
Chrissy, one last question for you. What are you specifically looking for in Ohio? What regions, what areas are you looking for on Tuesday to give us some sort of a bellwether indication of who's going to win?
Yeah, I think Southwest Ohio is a huge area to look at because Kasich isn't as popular down there. There's a lot of conservatives. And so when we look at turnout and we look at how things go in Southwest Ohio, we'll have to see how strongly Donald Trump supporters are coming out. Kasich is obviously hoping to bring out a lot of supporters in northern and northeast Ohio where they're more moderate and where they really look for him. So those will be the two areas to look at to see which campaign is turning out more people on Tuesday.
Chrissy Thompson with the Cincinnati Enquirer. Really appreciate your joining us. Thank you.
Thanks so much.